Well, hello and welcome to the CRM Zen Show, where we talk about all things Zoho. This is episode 368. CommandCenter 2.0 orchestrates a CRM Symphony, recorded for Friday, August 15th, 2025. From Zenatta Consulting, my name is Tyler Colt.
Belnap, and let's get right on into the show.
All right, let's do it. That title just rolls right off the tongue. So smooth, so easy. Yeah, it's love that one. Busy week this week. There's a lot of news. We didn't include all of it in the show. Lots of minor stories across many other apps. Of course, Zenatta.com/newsletter. If you like to get everything, you can sign up there. Delivers every Monday. Busy week this week. So I don't know, Greg, any news to share? Anything you want to share with the viewers, or should we just jump right on into the news?
I say we just jump right on into it. There's plenty to talk about this week.
Cool. Let's do it. With that, Freddie, run that transition. You know, many things about the CRM Zen Show have changed over time, but not that transition sound. We have kept that for like 4 years now, and I love it. It's not going anywhere.
Yep. It's like
with that.
It's the same way that like the Mac OS still uses the same.
Yep. Why get rid of
on
it?
startup never changes.
Beautiful thing. So big story to lead here from CRM. They're rolling out CommandCenter 2.0. I'm pretty excited for this one. So CommandCenter there's a lot of ways to manage a process in Zoho CRM. You have workflows, you have blueprints, you now have cadences, you also have kiosks. One that's been around for
workflows.
And connected workflows now, connected records. One that's existed for a long time that honestly we don't see it get used very often is CommandCenter. CommandCenter is basically a way that Zoho kind of offers up the ability to stitch activity-based workflows together a bit more smoothly in kind of like a flowchart. So it's similar to a blueprint, but historically a lot of it has been centered around like tasks, emails, calls, like activity data. I'll tell you, internally, we've not used them too often. Generally speaking, they've always been a little too limited to capture the process. And we end up using a combo of like blueprints and workflows. It's kind of like the bread and butter for most Zoho implementers. But again, for clarity, it is nice to have, if you're watching us on YouTube, kind of like these flowchart style views, right? Where I can like see a set of things going on and build a process more holistically. I got a nice little embed here on their article. So they've changed a lot in here with CommandCenter 2.0. New UI, much smoother controls. They've kind of renamed some things in the application. So stages, previously called states. Signals, previously called triggers. So kind of syncing this up with those changes they made to the timeline and that like interactions view, right? They're bringing a lot of those terminologies together, which is good. Nice job, Zoho. It's a pretty significant update from the perspective of UI, terminology, and naming. I don't see a lot near, Greg, from like a big functionality difference. I guess some of those might be hidden in this little flowchart. New stage configurations. Not having to configure something as a module stage, but just a stage in general. New identifiers that you can essentially track at each stage. So that's like what part of the journey are they in and what data is relevant to that. More tracking of goals. I do like, when we put our consultant hat on with a client, oftentimes we like to orient around the goal. Right. So like a lead comes in, they filled out the form. What do we want to have happen? Right. Okay. We want the initial discovery meeting booked. Well, how does it get there? How do we know that it's booked? Right. You always want to be like working a process towards a certain goal. So defining those is going to be nice. Tracking sentiment being a bit more baked in. Looking at transition time. So being able to see like how long something should be in a certain stage. So kind of a lot of updates here, Greg. It looks like, though, a lot of these being more on like the reporting and visibility, less on like the specifics of what you're doing with the command center. Am I right in that analysis?
Yeah, it looks to me like the core like automations and actions that Command Center could do before are about the same.
Yeah.
But being able to design it maybe a little bit easier than it was before.
Yeah. And I do see here as well, the one I'd say biggest functional change is that you can now set up your action, which could be like creating a task for a user, let's say. You could set up the action such that it's not tied only to the stage that it entered, but also how it got to that stage, right? So like if somebody went to the stage qualified via path A, maybe path A is pre-qualified. They filled out the form, everything on there looked great. Awesome. We're going to do task A, which is skip the line, right? They go right to the onboarding team. Whereas maybe if they got through path B, which was more like some phone calls, some engagement, maybe they need to get a different task assigned to a different person, right, to move them forward. So I do like that. Similar to like in a blueprint, a lot of your automations are associated not to the stage, but to the transition, right? It looks like they're kind of moving this to a similar approach.
Yeah, that's a good move.
But yeah, overall, nice one there. I don't know for me if this moves the needle where I would use this over like blueprints and workflows, but I'd be interested to hear in a comment below if people use CommandCenter too often. We just don't hear much about it, honestly. Next one up here from, again, CRM. We do have a couple of those. A new UI for tasks, calls, and meetings. So this is specifically when you have a task record opened up. So this is not like, I remember it was like 18 months back, right? They changed it such that when you're in like a deal and you see the list of activities, they kind of break them into the columns, or you can toggle it to a list view. Nothing's changing there. This is like I've clicked into a task and I have it open. Basically what they've done is they've moved the timeline section from being a right-hand kind of like a panel to that top of the screen toggle, similar to most records. So I do like that. Keep in mind, you will see some things in the task timeline that are related to like the lead or the deal. It kind of shows like a full timeline view there. They've also adjusted a bit about the meeting header. So previously host and related to were up here at the top. Now they're kind of moving those down into specific fields, making them a little bigger, easier to see. Honestly, I kind of prefer the old one here. Maybe that's just me. I just think this looks a little bit cleaner. It's like easier for me to see all the information on this. It might just be that they didn't set times on this meeting, but like, you know, it's at a date from 4 to 5. This, I just see the dates. So not sure exactly there. And then they've also updated the meeting info. So just a lot more field-based information showing up inside of the meetings. Similar UI changes here for calls. So they've now set up the start time as a particular field, and then they've added the reminder time just as a field that you can see. So nothing too crazy there. Again, this is a good one if you're a listener to actually check out the article, because a lot of these are just screenshots, right? That are, you know, like some of them being more significant, some being minor. Like for an RSVP for a meeting, they color coded yes, maybe, and no. It's like, yeah, that's nice. You know, nothing transformative, but yes is green. Like, I like that. But yeah, nothing too crazy here. A lot of these are just like minor moves of buttons or fields. I think the idea is just to make it look more like a normal record, right? When you've opened up a task or a meeting in the past, it's always been like, you know, it's just things are moved. They're just not like where they normally are. And for users, like, again, you always have to think about, I've opened up a task record in CRM more times than I would care to count. But like for a newer user to the platform, having things move around when you go to different pages, just less than ideal, right? It's generally not people's preference. So this looks just like a normalization sweep to me. Like, make it look the way that it looks in other records.
Yeah. The one feature here that is very useful to guys like me in the development sector is that timeline, moving it over, because when it was in the right side panel, it would show you the dates that updates occurred, but not a timestamp. Whereas when it's in the full, you know, all the other records that have that you know, larger timeline that kind of, you know, is there, viewed there with the record, then I can see like the actual timestamps of when things occurred, so that I know like, oh, I tried to make this happen, or I was testing this automation, and I want to see, did this happen at the time that it was supposed to?
Yeah.
Because I might trigger a workflow, 3 or 4 times while I'm testing it or whatever, and then
Yeah.
You can't always tell exactly from the timeline view unless you're looking at the timestamps of like which time that I triggered it,
Yes.
had which result.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for either like newer Zoho developers out there or users that are doing a lot of build yourself, don't sleep on the timeline as you're trying to figure out, like, did my automation work? What order did things happen in? Like, I think a lot of people forget that exists, but anytime a workflow triggers or an update is made based on a workflow, all of that shows in the timeline. So if you're scratching your head trying to figure out, like, why is this thing not working as intended? Go in there and check. And it might be like you need things to run in order A, B, C, but B just runs faster than A. So it's actually running in B, A, C. And that's why you're having a problem. And you just need to put a 1-minute delay somewhere and all your problems go away. So yeah, when in doubt, go to the timeline. It's like the first place we go if a client ever reports like, hey, something weird happened with this record. I know exactly where I'm going. It's the timeline. That's where I'm going to start. And I'm going to work backwards from there to figure out what happened that caused a certain outcome. So yeah, I didn't even think about that, but just having more screen real estate for the timeline is really nice. Again, selfishly as like developers. Next one up here, still in the world of CRM, more permissions for timelines and interactions via the profile settings. So profiles, of course, are in large part where you're going to define what somebody can do with a record. One of the things they can do with a record is look at the timeline. So now you can essentially come in and disable or enable that timeline for particular user profiles. I'm trying to think, Greg, like, when would I not want an employee to see the timeline? Like, because if I'm like assigning them a deal, let's say like you're working a deal, you're going to be unexpectedly out of office for 3 weeks. I'm like, okay, I'm going to pick up the deal now. I'm going to go to the timeline and just see, like, when have we sent them emails? When have we done this? Like, is there like a security element there that you think people would want to? I mean, it's not an issue, right? Leave it on if you want it on. Like, no effect, no harm, no foul. But when would I turn this off?
So the thing that I don't know the answer to right now is, how does this work with field permissions? Right? So, because one of the things you can see on the timeline is whenever like a field's value is updated from, blank to whatever. And so I don't know if field permissions, like if you say that one field should only be accessible to admins and not to the individual salespeople, I don't know if those record changes appear in the timeline, and that might be what's going on here.
Could be. Or does I don't think they'll show up if you don't have access to that field, but that'd be a good question.
That's also my assumption, but that's the only other thing that I can think of is that and honestly, the better version of this would be, rather than just totally restricting timeline access, would be some kind of more granular version that lets you say like, should actions by this role of person show up on the time? Like, should admin actions, interactions performed by admins, be hidden on timelines for sales reps? Kind of a thing. That I could see being more useful, and hopefully they eventually take it that direction. But that's the only thing I can think of, is if you didn't want to see, I guess maybe you could see something like, oh man, this used to be Dennis's deal. I could see that, I stole Dennis's, or Dennis goes to see like, oh my gosh, they gave my deal to Robert. I can't believe this. I don't know.
He's picked up an accent mid thought there. Yeah, and I guess like, look, at the end of the day, they do call it out. There is this concept in the world of software configuration called the principle of least privilege, which is basically, you can also sum it up as any open door gets used. Right? So if you don't want someone to walk through a door, close the door. right? Because there shouldn't be a button visible to a user that they're not allowed to press, right? Like it just don't show them the button. So I'm never going to criticize more permissions, right? Having more granular permissions is basically always good. And if you want people to see the timeline, leave it on, right? No, you're not forced to do it. I'm just curious, right? Like this must have been a request or there's some angle here that I don't get. But again, no harm, no foul. Yeah, just asking questions.
I'm just asking questions.
Truly a podcast now. Just asking questions. All right, next one up here is a rundown of new Zoho inventory updates for Q2 25. I swear we've gone through so many summations of inventory updates lately. A lot of these have been covered already. Covers the replenishments, new Etsy integration, custom module access. I kind of read through this before, and I'm like 95% sure we covered all of these. I did just want to highlight it. Yep.
I was feeling a little like deja vu, and I think it's because this is the quarterly review, and yes. I think last week or the week before we had like the monthly review where it was like here's everything that happened. Here's everything that happened in July, and now they're saying, okay, now here's everything that happened in Q2, which also includes July. Because when they said introducing replenishments, I'm like, you've introduced replenishments. Yeah. Tyler and I have talked about introducing replenishments 3 or 4 times on this show.
Yep. So not going to bore everybody by going through all of these in detail, but I did just want to highlight, I like when they do these because yes, of course, we look at every news article every single week. Normal human beings like roll-ups. So this does exist. Yeah. It's over on the website. It'll be in the links to the show notes, everything. So if you want to access it, it is there. Of course, newsletter if you like to get it emailed to you. But yeah, this is here. This is their Q2 2025. The big one, again, I think replenishments for those who do a lot of inventory management, which you probably are if you're using Zoho Inventory. So worth actually accessing this article and reading through it just to make sure that you're up to date on everything going on. Next one up here is the world of Recruit. You spend a lot more time in Recruit than I do, Greg. This True. Is numerical ratings for interviewer assessments. So can you walk me through a bit kind of what is new about this? Because I thought when you did an assessment, you could already kind of score it numerically. Is this like a weighting system, like which questions are more important than others?
Well, it's so if you look at for those that are viewing on YouTube, on the screenshot that Tyler's got, it's a little hard to see, but if you look at that grayed out background behind it, when you're creating the assessment, you have essentially it's just a more granular rating system because your rating types are thumbs up or thumbs down, so a pass or fail, then a star rating, which you give them 1 to 5 stars. And then numeric rating is you're going to grade them on a scale of, 1 to 10.
Got it.
So for the most part, it's just more granular scoring. Because like you said, yes, you could already do, but it wasn't strict numbers. It was like these star ratings was the most common one. Like that's the one that we use is these star ratings.
Okay, so it is,
and so they have the different
star rating with more granularity, right? Like rather than doing 1 to 5, it's 1 to 10, so I can do a 7 instead of having to put them in a 6 or an 8, right? If we're doing the stars, okay. But I guess the newer component there that's different than just higher granularity is that qualifying score, right? Of saying like you've got to get X% after this has been graded to move forward. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So it's a level more granular, and then it's that qualifier. That is nice. I would actually imagine us considering moving over to using these versus stars, just because like the more granularly you can kind of rate and review a certain answer, the better. Right? Like we do some like technical deluge questions, and like somebody might get most of it right. They just miss that one little thing. Maybe that's a 9 rather than an 8 or a 4 out of 5. Mm-hmm. I don't know how much detail that really gives you, but the qualification I think is more what I would imagine saves people some time, right? It is one of those things. I mean, we feel bad. Like you post a job opening up, it gets hundreds of applicants immediately for every job posting that you put out, and so I think a lot of it's kind of unfortunate 'cause, it's you never feel good to like filter more
we
stuff. But
I don't know what you're talking about. We here at Zenatta, we love reducing people to numbers. That's our whole thing. So we
but
just
it's
love
tough
taking
'cause,
all
like,
the complexities and multitudes of the human soul and just putting a 1 or a 6 on it. Oh, it's so good.
but it's tough because like you can't interview 500 people. It's too many. Like it is just not possible. So it is a good tool to just be able to at least say, hey, these are people that are above the threshold, right? From that initial kind of quantitative tracking. So yeah, nice one there. Recruit just gets better and better. It's definitely a heavy application, but a good one. Next one up here, last news story for the week. Probably won't go through this one in total detail, but it's a bit of a shout out to the SalesIQ team and a highlight of keep an eye on this thread because if they do more of these, it'll be really useful. Basically, in the new Nova release, which we've talked about a bit for SalesIQ, they've added a lot more workflow functionality, more triggers, more things that can be done, more custom if-then statements, right? Which is one of our favorite things about most Zoho apps is you can go pretty crazy with your if-then statements. This is basically them going line by line and saying, hey, what if you wanted to tag any chat that got automatically closed due to like a timeout, right? And that's something you might want to do, right? Because that's someone that you might want to follow up with, right? And say like, hey, we got disconnected. I'd love to send them an email and say, if you still need help, we're here. We'd love to chat. So they actually go through in this article every step with screenshots exactly how you would do that, right? So go in, set up a workflow, choose the module. Here's the deluge script that you would need, like copy paste it, right? And a set of things that you would need to change, right? Like to actually add your tag and make your connection. Whole video walkthrough of that, how to actually save and activate it. Really cool. Like just a nice article from Zoho.
It's a good code share.
Yeah, nice little code share. We always love to see those. And again, like if you're getting started with these workflows, maybe you don't need this, but you need something similar. This could be that little template that you kind of start with to go in and
reverse
follow
engineer.
up and make it. Kind of reverse engineer it. So just wanted to feature this one that if you're not in SalesIQ, no worries. But if you are, I would recommend just like skimming through this because it basically gives you a nice little step-by-step tutorial for setting up these custom workflows.
Yeah, it's a good one. They're even nice enough to add a variable there for your data center. So those of you that are not in the standard US one, they're like, hey, we got you, boo.
Yeah, very nice little code share, very modular. They did a good job with this. So yeah, just wanted to highlight that and do a quick shout out to the SalesIQ team because I like this. It's a nice article, and whenever we can empower a user to like try something out right on their own, I'm always happy to see that.
Oh yeah.
All right. With that, I think ready with the news. So let's jump over to Club Zenatta and check out our code share of the week. All right, this is Bruno, senior developer at Zenatta and resident SQL guru, doing a valid until date in Zoho Analytics using SQL and some last modified timestamps. I will out myself here, Greg. I hate partition by in SQL. I don't know what it is about it. I'm pretty darn good at SQL, I'd like to believe. I've done a lot of pretty complicated build outs. Something about order and partition by just hurts my head. So I'm going to ask you, Greg, to kind of walk us through what we're doing here in this code share, because it is just nails on chalkboard to me when I see the word partition. I don't like it. So Greg, take it away.
Happy to. So the partition by, order by, the over thing, that's referred to as a tabular function. So if you go into analytics and you look at the functions list in the SQL editor, they have them all categorized. This is under tabular functions. And the purpose of a tabular function is to be able to do, because normally when you are writing a select statement, any kind of like function or calculation that you're doing is going to be based on just one row at a time. Like you set up that I'm going to have a value for the column here, team, the team they're a part of, the member name, the last modified time. So again, any calculations are just running on that one row of your table. And then, obviously it repeats on every row through your table. But everything you're writing is always corresponding to the same row. The point of a tabular function is to be able to run calculations on rows that are outside of the current row that your select statement is running on. So in this case, Bruno is using a lead function with this tabular function to basically say, so he's doing this off of like he's doing this off of something called a team history table. You could also replace this with like a stage history table in, like say with deals in the CRM, that you have a stage history table that says, it gives, because in those history tables, you would get like all the different stages that a deal has been through, and you get the time that it happened, right? The time that the change occurred. But the rows on that history table don't say, like, when did it leave this stage? Because that's only based off of the modified time in another row.
The one it went into.
Exactly. So what this case statement that he has in here is, it's saying that we want to get the lead, or the value in the row ahead of us, the last modified time, right? We want the modified time of the next update that had happened, and then we're going to do that over and when we say over, that means that we're setting up like a window of rows that we're going to look at. We're getting this calculation, and then we're going to partition by or divide by, this case, team, right? Because we only want to get the next stage that happened that's associated with the team that we're currently looking at in this row, right? Not just the next stage, not just the next modification that happened for some other. Because same thing in the stage history table, like if we're talking the deals one, that's a little bit easier, I think, for people to relate to, that you have like all the stage changes for all deals all in one table. You would want to partition by the deal, because you only care about the changes within a certain deal,
active in deal,
for your comparisons. And then finally, of those additional rows, how do I want to order those? Well, I want to order them by that last modified time, because again, I want the next one, in the timeline. And so eventually what you get by the end of this is the resulting table you'll have your team, your members, the modified time, which is essentially the start time of that stage. And then your valid until is, well, when did it eventually change? And the reason why you would want to set something like this up is if you were going to make another table and you wanted to be able to very easily find out, well, what phase, like let's say I was then looking at like a task record somewhere else, and that task had a due date, and I say, well, when was this, like in the phase of things, when was this thing due? The problem is that if you are just relating to the base history table, it's a lot easier to be able to say, I want to do a join if the date of this task is between the start and valid until date on this other SQL table that I'm doing. So, funny. It's a relatively short code share post, but does take a lot of additional context and explanation. But yes, very useful. I know how difficult they can seem, Tyler, but I promise you, tabular functions are worth knowing. They're worth giving it the old college try.
I'm happy that I know people who know them. That's what I'll say. I'm happy that we've got so many smart people that know how to do them properly. I've set up one in my life, and it did work, but I think I had to ask you about it halfway through. But yeah, really nice one. Again, I think like a common use case, like you mentioned here, would be the stage history table, right? Of just like, when did we enter and when did we exit a stage for calculating things like pipeline velocity. So really good, kind of universally useful. You would just be swapping out a couple parameters, right, to make it fit for that particular history tracking that you're looking for. Big shout out to Bruno. I'll come back to this and steal it in the future next time I have to do a partition buy, and when Greg's out of office and I can't ask him to do it for me. With that, as always, over at club.zenatta.com, that's the free community, Zoho nerds helping out other Zoho nerds. So if you are one of us, go ahead and join. Totally free. Just has you add your email so we know you're not a bot. You're not going to spam a bunch of crypto ads on Club Zenatta. So don't do that. With that, as always, we're approaching that 3,000 members. Really excited, Freddie. Get the angels ready. It should be a week or two, and then we'll be there. So always looking forward to my next angel getting their wings. With that, I think we're ready to head over to the website and check out what's new on Zenatta.com. All right, this is a good one. I gave you a shout out for this one last week, Greg. We've now turned it into an article. This is an attempt here from Zenatta to demystify how budgets work in Zoho projects. There are many different options. Then the combinations of each option create different outcomes. So as you're getting started with projects, it is, I used to have a chemistry professor that would say a non-trivial exercise to actually get budgeting set up. So Greg went through and covered all of that in detail. We talked about it last week. But here is also a write-up as another point of reference that you can use to track all of this. Again, it's really about budget types and billing methods and the combinations between each of those. So a quick write-up here that acts as a kind of supplemental guide to what Greg goes over in that video. So well worth a watch if you were in Zoho projects or if you're evaluating it. Like we talked about last week, like the way that you budget and the way that you bill is a non-negotiable for most businesses. So if you're evaluating projects and you're like, is this going to work for us? If you can't budget and bill how you need to, it doesn't work for you, right? So this video, it's a 30-minute watch, and it should get you to a place where you know if it will or won't work for how you run your business. Well worth taking a look at for those who are interested in Zoho projects. All right. With that, let's jump over to youtube.com/Zenatta and check out our tips of the week. All right, couple quick news breakdowns for this last week. Essentially, we went over a couple of the stories we covered in the previous week, just in more detail. So AI agents coming for Zoho Bigin. Quick shout out to one of the commenters. I'm also more interested in seeing this for full CRM. Really cool in Bigin, but obviously the vast majority of people are using CRM, right? The kind of higher functionality option. So the minute we get those, we'll be covering them as well. But we kind of just went through here the reply assistant, the cross-sell genie, the churn analyzer, which, as Greg pointed out, should have been called the churnalizer, just a missed opportunity there. Tried to cover really everything coming down the pipeline as well, and some of the mobile app integrations. So if you're a Bigin user, worth taking a look. And then I also covered the Zia LLM updates for WorkDrive in a separate video, kind of diving into those Zia hubs. I'm really excited about these. I think they're a really, really cool premise, and they're like exactly one of the main ways that I think a business can actually use an LLM. I think like there's a lot of people out there, and when I talk to our clients, when I talk to prospects, there's a high degree of uncertainty of like, yeah, I know LLMs are cool, and I know my employees can use them to like clean up an email that they're going to send, or like write a quick JavaScript snippet, but how do I, as an organization, actually deploy an LLM in a structured way to deliver business information to my teams? Zia hubs are like a really good way to do that, right? Obviously, they're going to be new. They're going to have a wart here or there that you're going to have to work out. But that's a great screenshot. Let's leave it at this one. I look very displeased by what I'm seeing. Essentially, these are a way to log a bunch of information in a folder and then have an LLM query, summarize, and source that information for a user. So I'm really excited about these. Don't trust my screenshot here. I'm happy not smelling something gross, it looks like there. So I'm really excited about these. Well worth taking a look at, especially if you're already on WorkDrive. It's like, hey, you just got to get things into these hubs and then you are good to go. All right. With that, I think we're ready to head over to our Ask Zenatta Anything About Zoho section for a quick question from a community member. you got to have it. You got to have the air guitar. All right. This is a question from John Bloomfield over at Bloomfield Financial Limited. Longtime community member. He is actually someone who answers a lot of questions over on Club Zenatta for others. So he thought, hey, we owe it to him. We got to figure this one out for you. So John asks, in our quest for a better way to manage tasks across apps, he was revisiting or considering visiting projects and CRM integration. Looking to essentially get some of the tasks synced back and forth, have a dashboard in CRM, get unified task management. Now, what he's saying is, years ago, he set up the integration where you're essentially like from a deal, let's say in CRM, you're launching a project, you're adding the account and contact as client, information to projects. But he's running into an issue because anytime you add one of those contacts, they would automatically, without an option, get a portal invite to Zoho projects. And, while you might want to connect a project and a task to a client in CRM, that doesn't inherently mean you want them to go into the project's portal, right? Like that's a whole different thing. They're going to get that email, they're going to log in. If they've not used Zoho projects before, they're going to be confused, right? And you might just go like, I don't want that to happen. For a lot of people, it's like, hey, we meet with them, we go over it together. I don't need them monkeying around inside of the project's UI. So he was asking, hey, is that still the case? Is there some way that I can add somebody or associate somebody to a project and not invite them? And John, we have good news. We actually have good news on this one. Sometimes we get one of these questions and the answer is pretty much no. The answer in this case is, yeah, they did fix this. They got lots of forum posts on it. And my understanding, Greg, is they've kind of broken it into a client user and a contact user. Is that kind of the differentiation?
Yeah, exactly. So when you go to they've made a couple of changes around the UI for this, and the language. So client companies are now customers in projects, right? They made that a little bit easier to understand, right? And then these customers have client users. Now, when you go to add somebody as a client user, there is a checkbox option to say, add them as a contact, which basically means that their information will be in Zoho projects, but they are not going to be given portal access. And so you can do this. You can do this when you're adding somebody via API. You can do this when you're manually adding someone to your users list in Zoho projects. And I believe, Tyler, just before we started rolling the show, didn't you check that on the CRM side as well, that if you're adding, if you're trying to sync somebody to projects from the CRM?
I teed Greg up as if I was asking a question about the difference, but yeah, we checked before the call. A little look behind the curtain. We do check these before we get to answering them. I went into a demo account and I went to a deal and I, went through the steps of manually launching a project via that project's related list. And when you actually get to adding the person, you can choose to add them as a client user, so they would get a portal invite, or a contact user where they wouldn't. You can now do this, John. It was something that I saw a couple years of many forum posts of people going, hey, Zoho, I really don't want to add them as a portal user. They did end up fixing that, where it's a contact user does not have access, a client user does have access. And that's kind of the term differentiation there. Yeah. So hope that is helpful. Maybe it'll get you back into Zoho projects if it's a good fit for you. It's always, sometimes you run into that where it's like, there's just that one little thing about an app, right, that just prevents you from using it. And this is one that for me, it's like, that makes sense. I don't want them in there. And if I have to have them in there, I won't use the app, right? Because it's not what we want. You don't ever want to get a client to get an email inviting them to a portal that you don't want them to use. That's just going to create more work and questions.
Yeah, and especially because in projects, in order for them to actually get any use out of it, you would have to have external configured milestones, or I guess phases is the word now.
They're
external
flag.
phases. Yes. For them to see, because then otherwise you're even worse than them see is that they'll log in and then see that there's There are no tasks and no phases or milestones associated with their project.
Nothing's been completed. Nothing's being worked on. Yeah.
What is happening? I have no information here.
That is a good point. Not to belabor the point, but for those who don't use projects a lot, when you set up a milestone or a phase, you flag it as internal or external, and they default to internal. So if you were just, using projects for your normal stuff, they would all be internal. The client gets an email you don't want them to get. They log in because they're like, hey, okay, they want me to log into the portal and see what's being worked on. I'll go ahead and do that. They log in and it's empty. There's nothing in it. That creates an angry email that was very avoidable otherwise. Easily resolved by saying, hey, it was a technical error, but still, you just don't really want someone to see an empty task list right after they, sign up with you. So that's a funny call out there, Greg. All right. On that note, I think we're ready to wrap up here for today. As always, thank you so much for watching and listening. If you want to get in touch with us over here at Zenatta, just head on over to Zenatta.com and click on Book a Meeting. We'd love to chat. While you're over there on the website, you can check out all episodes of the show, as well as links to all the stories we discussed today.
Head over to club.zenatta.com to gain access to the code share that we discussed, as well as all of our previous code shares. And if you want to get your team trained up on the core Zoho apps like CRM, projects, desk, etc., head over to zenatta.com/training and sign up today.
And as always, we appreciate when you like and subscribe here on YouTube, as well as your choice of podcast app. We will see you next Friday.
The CRM Zen Show was produced by Podcaster Zen.
I've got no pitter-patter here for the outro. I've got nothing funny to say, so I'll just say have a nice weekend, everybody.
Wow, that's what you get for losing your wisdom teeth. You have no more bits.
Not funny anymore, Greg.
You lost it.
And I never was that funny, but now I'm extra unfunny.